and welcome to another episode of Bossing English with Mr. F. Today, Literature Paper 1, a quick how-to guide to answering this type of question. And on the screen you will see we have a question for A Christmas Carol. We are given the name of the text at the top of the question. Then we're given a bit of context about where the extract comes from. Then we're given a brief summary of the extract. Then we're given the extract. And then finally, we get down to the actual question we need to answer. Starting with this extract, write about how fear is presented in A Christmas Carol. Then we get the 2 bullet points to remind us that we need to write about fear in the extract and fear in the novel as a whole. Okay, let's break that down into a bit more detail about what exactly we're expected to do. We're going to have to analyse the extract in terms of language, structure and form in relation to the question keyword fear. We're also going to have to analyse the whole novel, perhaps language, structure and form in relation to the question keyword of fear. Now, in our planning, what we might start to do is to broaden that idea of fear out. It's just a concept that we can stretch. Who is fearful in the novel? What are they afraid of? And by coming up with some questions, we start to broaden it out and broaden our focus and scope. We also know that there are 6 marks available for context. We know we're in Victorian England. Specifically, we're in London, and we're often dealing with poverty and the gap between rich and poor. But we have to make that relevant by applying it to this keyword of fear and linking it to fear somehow. Finally, if we're going for top marks on this question, a developed answer at level 5 or a conceptual or exploratory answer at level 6, we might want to think about the bigger picture. What is Dickens's message to his readers? He's a very didactic, moralistic writer, and he's often moralizing and trying to teach his readers a message. What is he trying to teach them about fear? Okay, how would you answer that? Well, many students choose the one on the left. They do a long paragraph analysing the extract, and then they do a long paragraph analysing the whole novel, and that's absolutely fine. However, today I want to focus on this approach, which I find a bit more flexible, especially if we're going for those top marks and a more developed or conceptual and exploratory answer. By conceptual, I mean I have a very specific idea about what I think Dickens is saying about fear in A Christmas Carol. And I'm going to demonstrate my thesis by lots of examples from the extract and from the whole novel. So I might write about something in the extract, zoom in, and then zoom out to the whole novel. Then in my next paragraph, zoom in and zoom out, and in my third paragraph, zoom in and zoom out. And that approach, I think, allows for a more developed, flexible approach for those higher level answers. Okay, what about the ratio between how much should I write about the extract and how much should I write about the whole text? Well, there is no specific ratio. It's not 50-50. As long as you do both, you'll get marks. So you could, if you find that you've got more to say about the extract and less to say about the whole text, you could do 70-30. Or alternatively, if you've got less to say about the extract and more to say about the whole text, it could be 30-70. As long as you're doing both, you're not limiting the marks you can get. The only time you're limiting it is if you only concentrate on one of those aspects. Okay, I get the question. The first thing I'm going to do is highlight chapter 4, and I'm going to try and think about, well, what happened just before this scene started and what happens after it. So I'm going to add a bit of extra context to it, which I might then do in my answer. The other thing I'm going to do is highlight the question keywords, especially how, which is remind and presented, because that's reminding me I need to focus on methods like language, structure and form. Okay, let's have a look at this zoom in, zoom out approach. Zooming in. There is something uniquely terrifying about this ghost for Scrooge, which can only be described in vague metaphors. Silent shape, one great heap of black. Even the effect it has on Scrooge is ambiguous, vague and certain horror. This tautologous phrase compounds the ambiguity as the 2 adjectives, vague and uncertain, stress how the phantom and its effect is almost indescribable. Neither the reader nor Scrooge can fathom it, which builds the sense of dread associated with the ghost clearly linked to death. Victorian readers would recognise its resemblance to traditional pictures of the Grim Reaper and the dark irony of its appearance on Christmas Eve, a time usually linked to birth, not death. So I've zoomed in and I've explored the extract in several chunks and go into a bit of detailed language analysis. And I've also brought in some relevant context there. Now I'm going to zoom out. Scrooge's horror is in stark contrast to his behaviour at the start of the novella when he meets Jacob Marley's ghost. He uses humour to discredit the ghost, saying it could be some undigested food. There is more of gravy than grave about you. Here Scrooge starts to experience mortal dread, which will come to a head later in Stay 4 when he views his own gravestone. Dickens shows us how Scrooge's relationship with fear has changed over the night, and he now uses it as a source of instruction or self-help. Your purpose is to do me good, which might be Dickens's message to his readers. And I might go on then to explore what is Dickens saying about fear to his Victorian readers. How could I do that? Well, here's some relevant context that is linked to the question keyword of fear. Victorian readers would have been scared of poverty. Dickens himself had first-hand experience of appalling working conditions of poor people when he was working in the blacking factory. And yet Dickens shows us poor people like the Cratchits, who are rich in family, and rich people like Scrooge, who are poor in their loveless, miserly lives. So maybe he's saying something about fear of the unknown can blind us to the positives in certain situations. That's just an exploratory idea, but it is linked into some relevant context there. What about the bigger picture, Dickens's message to his readers? Dickens could be very useful modal verb could. Again, that's allowing for alternative interpretations and an exploratory approach. Dickens could be showing how fear can be a useful tool for acquiring self-knowledge and wisdom. And that was the point I was making here about how, and we see that there, you know, Scrooge, despite his horror and fear and dread of this ghost, is prepared to accept it, knowing that it will do him good, that some good will come out of it, and he's there to help and not to hinder. Okay, I hope that has been useful to you. Smash the subscribe button, hit the like, and hopefully you'll join me for more videos. And if you have any comments, leave them in the comment section, and I can be inspired to do a video that you would like. Thank you.